I came across these videos by the Israel guys, and it was interesting. I want to analyze it for you to showcase how even when people say factual things, you can deduce different conclusions based on how they're saying it, even though what they're saying is actually factual. And they're showcasing the case for why there could not be and should not be a Palestinian state. That's what they're casing. And I want to kind of challenge that for you to show you, if you know, and if you've been there, I've been there in West Bank, for example, the facts that they're showing is interesting. So let's watch it.
What we want to do in this series is introduce you to what Judea and Samaria, which is the area that the world wants to make into a Palestinian state, actually looks like. And the biggest part of that is showing you what the borders of that would be. So we're currently sitting at the Pedwell Lookout. It's also known as...
So Judea and Samaria, that's what the Israelis call West Bank, and West Bank plus Gaza plus East Jerusalem is supposed to be for the Palestinian, for the future state of Palestine. And they're showcasing why they can't do that. Why Israel can't
Israel's
give
lookout,
them
because
that.
it's one of the most beautiful overlooks in all of Israel. So behind the camera, what you're going to see is Israel's coastline, which is where at least 70% of Israel's population lives. We're talking Tel Aviv, we're talking to the south Ashdod, Ashkelon, you're talking Netanya, a little further to the north Haifa. So we're overlooking all of this right now. Where I'm sitting right now, we are 17 miles to the Mediterranean Sea. On the other side of Tel Aviv is right out here, we're talking 17 miles. But I'm not on the border of what they call the Green Line. It's another 3.2 miles to the Green Line. So if we go all the way to where the borders of this Palestinian state would actually be, Israel's width right here would be 14 miles. Now, it gets even worse because just to my southwest, I'm looking at the Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. How far is it to there? 8.77 miles from here. How hard do you think it would be for Hamas, for Fatah, for Hezbollah to shoot rockets into the Ben Gurion Airport, much less at airplanes that are flying directly overhead where I'm sitting right now?
So this is interesting because one, Hamas, Hezbollah don't operate in West Bank. Hamas operates in Gaza. In West Bank, it's the Palestinian Authority, and they have somewhat a lot more peaceful cooperation with the Israelis. And in fact, there isn't any missiles kind of coming from West Bank into Israel. All of that comes from Gaza, which they've taken a different stance towards Israel as opposed to the Palestinian Authority in West Bank.
So again, we're just trying to give you a picture to show you what a potentially horrendous Palestinian enemy state would look like and what those borders would look like. 70% of Israel.
So they're already framing it as a horrendous Palestinian state. It doesn't have to be horrendous Palestinian state. But the point that they're making is that, okay, there's some strategic points in West Bank, which would be for the Palestinians. And for security reasons, we can't give them that because of these strategic positions. This is interesting because Israel has taken so many parts of West Bank for themselves. So only 18% of West Bank is actually under the Palestinian Authority jurisdiction. About 60% is completely under Israeli jurisdictions. They dictate what happens there, what are the rules there, the military is present there. So you've only given the Palestinians 18% really, which is called Area A. And Area B is kind of like a cooperation between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And then Area C, which is 60% of West Bank, is governed by Israel. If this is what is on the line and what's stopping the creation of Palestine because of these strategic positions, take those strategic positions and give that land space in another region that's not strategic to the Palestinians so they don't lose out. And so you have your defense and security requirements being met, and the Palestinians don't lose out on more land, if that was really the issue here.
Israel's population right here below me, and Israel's border would be 14 miles wide, and we're talking 5-6 miles to the airport. Absolutely suicide for Israel.
Right now, we're inside what they call the West Bank, which would, in the goal of the world to set up a Palestinian state, this would be on the Palestinian side of the state. The border runs right in front of us, just a few miles out from us here, and then on the other side would be the state of Israel. So from this perspective, the view that we have from here, if we go ahead and just copy paste Gaza here, because that would be what would be.
I love how they've gone to Gaza and not West Bank, because obviously Gaza is where the military activity is. So they're kind of giving you the worst case scenario of if Hamas takes over West Bank, which it is not operating in West Bank. It does not rule West Bank. There are no missiles being thrown from West Bank into these areas. and there is pretty much peaceful cooperation. I'm going to go into what that means in West Bank relatively to Gaza. So the image that they're showcasing is an interesting one. And then they go to the other point that they made in this video.
Make your impact. So we're just outside of the Lipsky factory in the Barkhan Industrial Park, which is a plastics manufacturing factory here, employing about 140 people, I believe. Barkhan Industrial Park is one of 16 industrial zones in Judea and Samaria. In this particular zone in Barkhan, they employ 5,000 Palestinian Arabs and at least 3,000 Israeli Jews. Everyone here is working under Israeli law, which means they receive same salaries, same benefits, healthcare, vacation, same opportunities at promotion. Everyone here works together. They're treated equally. So we're going to go ahead and meet Yehuda Cohen, who is the CEO of the Lipsky factory, and hopefully meet some of the workers, both Jew and Arab.
So one, it's great that they have these companies that hire both Arab and Israeli Jews. I think it's great for cooperation. But the point that is being made here is that the Arab Palestinians already have a good deal because they can be hired by Israelis in the West Bank under Israeli rule, under Israeli laws. One, that doesn't apply to all the Palestinians. Two, to say that they should just accept it because some of them can be hired is an interesting statement. Who would accept another country coming in and dictating what they can do, and having like their people settle in this entity? So you've got a lot of Israeli settlements in West Bank under Israeli law that the Palestinians cannot enter. Who would accept that in exchange for the ability to be employed by that foreign entity's people? It's an interesting statement that I don't think is reasonable. I want to go to the next video.
Is the North Tip one of the
So this is episode 2, exposing the myth of the Palestinian state. Let's
to show you guys the borders of Israel's heartland, what the world wants to make the West Bank or a Palestinian state. This is an amazing, amazing overlook where we're going to overlook the coastal region of Israel, more in the northern Shomron area. So come on, guys, let's go. On the camera, you can see all the way out to the coast here.
So from this point to the coastline, there's several small strips right in this area. Israel's shortest border, if this was created into be a terrorist state, then we would have 9 miles. So if you want to talk about border, if this was created into be a terrorist state, then...
He said if this is going to be created a terrorist state. So he's already kind of framing it as a terrorist state.
We would have 9 miles. So if you want to talk about, is that defensible? Nobody in the world would ever say that that's possible.
That's crazy.
You cannot defend a 9-mile strip. And that's also given that the 9 miles is in the lowlands, and we're sitting in the highlands overlooking it. From this vantage point that we're sitting now, this would be a very strategic point for any one of the terrorist organizations that thrive in this area. Janine is just right here.
We're also like not in a really populated area. We're kind of in a hilltop in a little closed-in area.
I love how they just showed you, oh, by the way, let me show you some missiles going and hitting some
airplanes. That would be like, I mean, this is typical like places in Gaza where Hamas put their little rocket launcher sites and launch out, except in
Yeah, but we're not in Gaza. This is the West Bank, and I explained why.
Gaza, you can't see what they're shooting at, and from here we can see
right in front of us
all the way into population centers. It's kind of a myth that Israel could actually provide security to prevent these rockets from being imported or built, because in Gaza, Israel actually has very tight control, a very small, demographically small area, and Israel has very tight control over what comes in and out, and they still somehow manage to build tens of thousands of rockets, and some of them are getting really high tech.
Right.
They launch over the border over and over and over again. And here in Samaria, the borders would actually be much broader, and that the opportunity to smuggle in material from other countries would be much, much, much broader. And Caesarea is on.
That is a fair point. I think that given that the borders are bigger for West Bank, so in a situation where you have a leader that comes in that is against Israel, they have more opportunities to get weapons.
Almost directly west, and it just blows my mind that we're not even at the northern tip of what they would call the West Bank, and we're like across from Caesarea. We're already north of Netanya. Like, it just blows my mind. Nobody has a clue that this much area of like this big of a geographical location of Israel is what the world wants to make a Palestinian state.
From here, we're going to go to the Green Line border crossing here, the northern tip of the Shomron, where thousands of Arabs cross over into Israel every single day to work inside of Israel.
So we're still in northern Samaria. We're just driving towards Mevo Dotan, which is one of the 2 Jewish communities over here, just to check out the area and see what it's like. Very rocky, just empty kind of land out here. Very pretty, lots of open space. There's not a population issue in Judea and Samaria, for sure. The 500,000 Israelis that live here in no way overcrowd the area. I think it's like 2% of Judea and Samaria that's actually like inhabited, something like that, right? Or no, it's 2% inhabited by Israelis, 38% by Arabs, 60% open land. And what we're looking at right now is a lot of open land.
How you know we're coming up on a Jewish community is there's a touch sense.
This is so interesting that they kind of framed it this way. So they're saying is that there's no overpopulation. There's a lot of empty land. Who needs the empty land? The Palestinians are not using it. So why are we all fighting about this kind of empty land? The facts are the Palestinians have authority over only 18% of what is known as West Bank. The other, there's 60% that is Israeli only governed and ruled, and the rest is kind of a cooperation, although it's mostly Israel. What that means is that for 60% of the land, Israel dictates what that 60% is. Palestinians do not have authority to build their homes there. So what that has resulted in is cities and communities that are very congested. So if you go to, for example, Hebron or any of these other big cities, you'll see the Palestinians kind of like put into one area, and they're not able to build outside of that area because Israel dictates and gives out the permits, and for example, in Area C, which is 60% of the land, and it won't give it to the Palestinians. It will give it to the Jewish only settlements, which are illegal under international law, which are in West Bank, which is supposed to be for the Palestinians, and those settlements are expanding into the West Bank. So it's interesting that he's saying that there's a lot of empty land, which is factual. It is a fact, but the reasoning behind that is not because the Palestinians don't want the land or don't want to build on the land, but it's because they're not allowed to build. And so they're kind of congested and put into these areas, which are mostly Area A, which is 18%. Only 18% is governed by the Palestinian Authority in West Bank. And actually, Area B and C are known as islands. And the reason why they're known as islands is because in every Area A, it's surrounded, or B, it's surrounded by C, which is Israel governed. So even when you look at West Bank, it looks big, but in fact, it's actually made up of only small islands in that area that is totally governed by the Palestinians. The rest is mostly governed by Israelis, and they dictate where you can build and who can live there.
Or fence around the outside of it. You'll never find anywhere in any Arab town, anywhere, village, you name it, will never have a touch sensor fence around it. And there, for all the smart people of the world, you could cipher very quickly the issue.
Well, so the reason why they don't have fences in the Arab places is because it's pointless to have fences when you have the Israeli army that is one of the most advanced countries in terms of weaponry that they have. They can just come in. The fences are pointless. They're not going to do anything. The Palestinians don't really have, they don't have an army, official army. Obviously in Gaza, they have Hamas, which has a military capability, military wing, and the Palestinian Authority, there is no such thing. There are police officers and some sort of security there, but I wouldn't label them as a military wing.
We're driving along. We found this really pretty valley out here. I'm gonna throw the drone up out here and see just a little bit of how crazy empty northern Samaria is. There's kind of a big myth about overpopulation here in Judea and Samaria. There's just people piled up on top of each other, but it's not true in the least.
Yeah, let's go to the cities where the Palestinians are able to live and see the people being piled over each other. I love how they've gone to the Area C, which Israelis have not allowed the Palestinians to live in, and said, "Oh, it's empty. Why are the Palestinians fighting for this?"
So you can see here on the drone, we're here in the valley. We have community All right, this is kind of crazy here. This is a big bust because most people don't know that the Arabs living in Judea and Samaria, hey, look at all these cars. What in the world are they all doing here? Well, we're on the border. This is the border between West Bank, so-called, and Israel proper. All of these Arabs, none of them have citizenship in Israel, but they're all working in Israel because they can get 10 times the money working over there as opposed to working over here. The stats, they say there's around 150,000 Palestinians that work living in Judea and Samaria and in Gaza that work inside of Israel, so across the Green Line in Israeli cities. And there's somewhere between like 23 to 34,000 Palestinians that work inside of Area C, which is the Israeli settlements inside of Judea and Samaria. So obviously there's a lot of Palestinians, 100, 170, 180,000 Palestinians at least, that are working for Israelis, for Jews, because they can make way more money than they can inside of their own towns and the cities. In Gaza, they're making very, very low wages in all these West Bank areas. So here's the point. So if they make more money in Israel proper, that's because, hey, Israel proper, there's Jewish sovereignty there. So another note for you, how about Jewish sovereignty here? And how about let's just stop making them, look, they're all, many thousands are working on the other side anyway. Let's declare Jewish sovereignty on this side. Let's help Israel to say, yes, a big voice from the nation saying, hey, sovereignty in your ancient homeland's a good idea. Hey, even these.
So this is very interesting because what they're saying, one, again, fact, there are a lot of Arabs that from the Palestinian side go into Israel sometimes on a daily basis to work because they get more money over there, definitely. A part of the reason why they get more than in West Bank or Gaza is because there's a lot of restrictions in those areas. And Israel is actually a much more developed country that provides services to the outside world. There isn't that many restrictions for them in terms of what they can do, where they can live. The living standards are much higher. Education is better. So obviously there are better businesses there. And so it's great that the Palestinians can benefit from that. I think that's a positive thing. But the fact that that is available does not negate the need for them to have their own country. Now, the interesting thing he said over there is, let's have Jewish sovereignty in this land. And what he's saying is basically let all of this land become Israel. Now, what they won't say here is that that is not possible because for those people to have equal rights, for the Palestinians in West Bank and in Gaza to have equal rights as Israelis, i.e. they can elect, they can vote, they can be in parliament, it will tip the population demographic whereby the majority of people will go from being Jewish, which is the case right now in Israel, to Arab, which will be if all of this area becomes a Jewish sovereign nation with equal rights for everyone, which is not the case right now. These people in Palestine, West Bank, Gaza obviously cannot vote for things in Israel, so they're not actually citizens of that nation. But Israel won't allow that because that goes against the premise of what Israel is, which is a Jewish state for the Jewish people, primarily. And so they're never going to be in a situation where they're going to allow equal rights for the Palestinians, even if this is one state under Israel. And at the same time, what the case they're making is that we won't accept two-state because of these, one, strategic positions that West Bank has that makes it difficult or dangerous for Israel, and two, the Palestinians are already happy because we hire them and they can earn money from that, which we've tackled in both cases, why there's no substance for that or how we can overcome the strategic point, for example. So it's interesting how everything that's being said is factual, but the conclusions that you're ending up with might be different to what conclusions you would have ended up with if you had the other side of the facts available to you. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to go to West Bank, to see it with my own eyes. I would recommend anyone who's able to go there to actually visit both Israel but there's a lot of issues, especially in West Bank and these illegal settlements that are just expanding in West Bank, and there's different rules and different roads for Jewish people versus Arabs, which is the reason why a lot of people say it's an apartheid state, because you can't have Jewish-only settlements in West Bank or rules that are different for Jewish people and Arab people in West Bank, or roads that only Arab people can use or only Jewish people can use. And a lot of times when I went there with my British passport, I was able to go to a lot of places in West Bank that the Palestinians cannot go to. I had more rights in their land than they did, which is obviously an insane thing.